Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I am bringing you my Jinzo deck profile. Now this is a very budget version of the deck, which is really cool because a lot of these cards just got either reprinted or newly printed in the Rage of Ra set, along with the new Jinzo Layered, which was like one of the promo cards from the Dragons of Legend, the complete series. So overall, this deck is super duper budget. You can take the budget up a little bit, but I figured for like the competitive power of this deck, you know, most people are going to just be playing it at the casual level. It's a deck that's really powerful once you get an established board, but just getting that board established is the hardest part. So that was the main focus of this build. So this build is going to be quite a bit different from other people, and of course I've added my own spicy text to the deck, especially one card that I'm really excited to show off to you guys. So here we're just going to go off with obviously 3 copies of Jinzo. So with this card on the field, obviously basically everybody knows what it does. Turns off all trap cards, and other trap cards on the field like can't be activated. So this card's just really strong. The biggest downside to this deck is that your opponent is going to try everything they can do to stop you to getting Jinzo out, so they're going to try to use all of their trap cards like Infinite Impermanence and Solemn Judgment and stuff to stop you from getting Jinzo out. So the main focus of this deck is actually to just to regular tribute summon him onto the field. That way your opponent's trap cards and stuff are just void, and they can't like impermanence you and stuff from getting your searches off and stuff like that. So then we're going to go on into 3 copies of the new Jinzo, the Machine Menace. So with the Machine Menace, what you do is, as long as a trap card is face up on the field or in either player's graveyard, you special summon him from your hand, and then this becomes a level 6. So this, in the extra deck, I've sort of tailored it to work with rank 6s, but also you can do a little bit of rank 7 plays. But then besides that, you can tribute him in order to special summon a Jinzo from your hand or graveyard, and then you can destroy all spell and traps that your opponent controls. Just all the traps that your opponent controls, which is kind of nice. Then basically any new traps your opponent has are, you know, they're not going to be able to be activated because you have a Jinzo on the field. And then we're going on into 3 copies of the Psychic Mega Cyber. This card is super good for the deck, and he really can help you to gain advantage as long as you can keep that board established. So what he does is he special summons himself from the hand as long as your opponent has more spell and traps than you do. He's also a level 6, so he works with our rank 6 plays. And then besides that, when he attacks your opponent's monster when you have Jinzo, then he basically turns your opponent's monster that he attacks into a trap card, which is really cool. Then we're going on into 3 copies of our Psychic Bounder. So with this is one of your best starter cards for the deck. And so when he's normal or special summoned, then you add a Jinzo or a spell or trap that lists Jinzo in its card text to your hand. And then he just has a little bit of like a battle protection effect. Then basically like his the other card that does basically the same thing is Jinzo Jector. So when he is summoned, he is Jinzo while he's on the field or in the graveyard. And then when he's summoned, you can tribute him and then add a Jinzo monster from your deck except for himself. And then besides that, you reveal all set cards that your opponent controls. And then if there are traps, then you can special summon as many Jinzo monsters from your hand equal to the number of traps that were revealed. So it's really nice. The only downside is that if your opponent's not playing traps, then it gets a little bit hard to get that off. But as long as you can get off that the Psychic Mega Cyber effect off at least once, then that can really help you. So like the Jinzo Jector and Mega Cyber can sort of combo off really well together. So then just to go off for the rest of the monsters, we have 1 Danger Nessie and 1 Danger Dogman. So I'm just playing these because they're the level 7s, and then they can help you to work with your Machine Menace. So then they just also help you to cycle through the deck a little bit more. And then for our last, another level 7 is Dino Wrestler Pankratops. This is a blind going second deck, so playing these going second cards like Pankratops is really nice. And then if you're not going to use his effect to destroy something, then you can just basically get him onto the field for free and then tribute him for a Jinzo, which will turn off all of your opponent's trap cards, which is really cool. So for our spells, we were playing 3 copies of the Cosmos Channeling. This was sort of one card that I really wanted to focus on with this deck. So basically what I kept finding out in testing is that it's super hard to actually get Jinzo onto the field, it's super easy to get all of your combo pieces and everything into hand, but if your opponent hand traps you or has any negates, which they're going to already have an established board, that's where this card really comes in handy, because as long as you have your combo pieces in hand, you can generally get this effect off. So if you control one of your opponent's monsters, then you can send it to the graveyard and then just special summon a machine monster from hand, aka Jinzo. And then besides that, this card also has just sort of a fun, sort of like anime effect, because this is obviously Esperoba from the anime in the picture, and so Esperoba was like or was posing to be a psychic mind controller kind of guy. So with this card, when your opponent draws a card, you reveal it, and then you claim if it is a monster, spell, or trap, and if you guess it right, then you send this card to the graveyard, and then you get to draw one card. So it's just a nice little upstart goblin for the deck, and so these cards can kind of like end up clogging on your field, so it's kind of nice to just send one, get to draw an extra card, and then besides that, if you just leave this on the field, then you can just keep doing that. Send your opponent's monster to the graveyard to special summon a machine monster. So this card's just really nice for actually getting the Jinzos onto the field, because besides this and the Jinzo Ejector, there's not really any good way to special summon. Maybe with the Jinzo the Machine Menace, but if your opponent's not playing any trap cards, it's really hard to get that off if nothing's really well established. So then we're going on into Law of the Cosmos. With this card, your opponent can set a trap card from their hand or deck, and then you get to special summon a Jinzo. However, they're probably not going to do that. They rarely ever do. So if they don't choose that option, then you just add a Jinzo from your deck to your hand, which is still pretty nice. Like, it's just a easy searchable Jinzo. And besides that, you don't actually just have to pick up a Jinzo. You can pick up any Jinzo monster. So, like, if your opponent does already have a trap on the field, you can just pick up, like, Jinzo Ejector and then use Jector's effect. So, from there, you can just kind of tune out whatever you need to be doing. Then, for a little protection, we're just playing 3 copies of the Cyber Energy Shock. Then going on into some of our board-breaking cards. 3 Super Polarizations. This is just sort of the best card, especially for this deck, to break through your opponent's stuff, because we're going second, so you got to just be playing these cards that are going to hopefully break up established boards, and then you can use your side deck and stuff to tailor to what kind of cards you really need. Or if it's not really applicable, then you can just side this card out and then just put in some other really good stuff. One card that I kept out of this deck, actually 2 cards, would be Allure of Darkness and Summoner Monk, which is probably a bit of a hot take because Summoner Monk is thought to be pretty good in this deck, but in testing, I just kept finding out more and more that my opponent kept hand trapping the Summoner Monk or using any other kind of negate on the Summoner Monk, and then you're discarding a spell card for nothing. So I just really liked having like the Super Poly and some of the other stuff to break the boards, and then yeah, you really don't need to waste your normal summon on the Summoner Monk anyways, because half the time you're going to want to be using your normal summon for Jinzo anyways. So that's why I left the Summoner Monk out. Then we're going on into 3 copies of my spicy tech for the deck, which is Autonomous Action Unit. So nobody probably knows what this card does, but basically you pay 1,500 life points and then you monster reborn one of your opponent's monsters from the graveyard. But it does not negate its effect or anything like that. The card can still attack. So, if your opponent has even something like a Blue Eyes White Dragon, for say, in their graveyard, you still have a 3,000 attack beater, but besides that, you can always tribute it, or since it is a card that you control that is owned by your opponent, works really well with our Cosmos Channeling. So this is actually just the simplest way on our first turn to take one of our opponent's monsters and get that Cosmos Channeling live. That way we can get a Jinzo on field as easy as possible. Then going on into 3 copies of Pot of Desires, just to get into our combo pieces easier. Again, I was playing Allure of Darkness in my original build, but I just kept finding that getting the +1 was actually a bit better. And I dropped the Summoner Monk, which was another one of the dark targets, so it just sort of felt right to switch into Pot of Desires instead of Allure of Darkness. Then we have 1 Mind Control, 1 Instant Fusion just for a really simple monster on board, plus you can go into Thousand Eyes, and then Relinquished Anima to steal 2 of your opponent's monsters. They won't count for your Cosmos channeling, but the Mind Control does. 1 Monster Reborn, again, just for like stealing stuff from your opponent or just reviving a Jinzo. And then 1 copy of Called by the Grave, because we need all of our searches to go off. If you have the money for triple tactical talents, there are a few cards in the main deck that you could take out for triple tactics talent, but I really wanted to keep this as a solid budget option. So now let's get on into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we were playing, of course, 2 copies of the Jinzo Layered. This card was a really nice addition to the deck and just really helps you to keep control of the board. So it requires 2 level 6 monsters, and then you can detach material to target a face-up monster that your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase. And then from there, you can, as long as a trap card is on the field, you can tribute a monster. So basically tribute your opponent's monster and then destroy a card on the field. So just nice for some really simple removal and whatnot. Then we're going to go on into 2 copies of our Dhampir Vampire Sheridan. Basically, it gets XZ summoned by using one of your opponent's monsters. So if you steal an opponent's monster with like mind control and whatnot, then you can count it as a rank 6. And then you can detach to send a card on the field, which is really nice for non-destruction removal and stuff like that. Then since we're playing all of the level 7s, we have a number 11 Big Eye. And I just wanted to include it in the deck for fun because it does sort of work with the mind control effect and whatnot. So with Big Eye, you can detach and then steal one of your opponent's monsters permanently, which is really cool. Then you could eventually use it to go into the Vampire Sheridan, or just tribute it for like a Jinzo and something like that. Then we, just for some rank 4 plays, we have 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Tornado Dragon. If you can find room in the extra deck, you could squeeze in a Baguska, but I kept finding that Tornado Dragon was really nice in here because there were times where I could go into Nightmare Phoenix, but I wouldn't have a good card to discard, so I liked having the Tornado Dragon as well. 1 Relinquished Anima for our Thousand Eyes Restrict play with our Instant Fusion. Then for the rest of our Super Poly targets, we have 1 Mud Dragon and 1 Starving Venom. And the Mud Dragon can also be used with the Instant Fusion to go into a rank 4 play. For the rest of our links, we have 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, Nightmare Phoenix, and then Nightmare Unicorn. The IP Masquerena is especially nice in here for when you're stealing your opponent's monsters. You know, just to make sure that you steal it, and then you can keep a resource on the field. And also, its materials don't have to be a monster with the same name. So if you're using stuff like Jinzo Jector and whatnot, then which also is treated as Jinzo on the field, then you don't have to worry about the having the same name problem. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys have been testing around with this deck a little bit, but I really, really do love Jinzo. I'm glad that it got some new support. I just hope that maybe it can get a little bit more aggressive support in the future to make this a really viable archetype. That would be really, really cool. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Common Collector out.